Welcome to another Jamwriter nugget. Bite-sized chunks of wisdom for your writing and publishing journey from Jamwriter authors. From manuscript to market and beyond. Today, our authors talk about the dreaded writer's block.
Who hasn't?
Yeah, exactly.
I think anytime that I come across like a roadblock where I can't figure out what I want to do next, I walk away and I do what I call talking to my characters. And I'll literally just put myself in a completely different place and go, all right, Faye, what's going on with you? Why can't we get over this hump? Or Richard, I see that we're over by this tree again. And what are you doing here when you should be over here? And believe it or not, it'll just sort of create this dialogue between me and the characters where we figure out together what is supposed to happen. And I've tried the whole outlining thing. Anytime that I outline and I feel like I know what's going to happen next, my characters just take me off to a different direction.
Oh, of course, yes. I'm kind of going through that right now as I'm trying to write my sequel. And I have a couple of other books on the back burner, but I'm it's different genres, right? And so the psychological thriller I wrote and have published, I want to follow up with a sequel. My other book that I'm kind of working on is more of a sci-fi, young adult fantasy book, right? So it's a different genre, and I'm kind of caught in between. Which one do I go with next, and and what direction do I go in?
I think everybody has writer's block to a certain extent. I never have a complete writer's block. I may get to a point in my book where I don't know where to go with it yet. But if I jump into one of my other books, I don't have a problem with it at all. I can pick up where I left there, and my creativity can flow there. And then as my brain starts to work out what the issues were where I had the problem, then I just return back to it. The other tip that I found is sometimes if I'm feeling a little stuck, I'll just go back and reread some of the stuff that I've already written in that same story. Whether I revisit the ending, or I revisit a critical chapter in the middle of the book, or I tweak the beginning. Or even if I just do kind of some self-editing, then that spurs my creativity too. And all of a sudden I put all that aside and then I jump right back into where I was and keep writing.
Well, yes, writer's block I certainly have had. It is really a case of, when I'm referring to Martina Cole earlier on, I've had phases in my structured book where I was trying to stick with this chapter tells this part, we move to this, we move to that, where I just suddenly went completely bonkers and nothing could stop me. I was creating out of nowhere and whole new situations which I hadn't planned at all.
It can be difficult.
Yeah.
I think you have to identify what is it that is blocking you. Like, is it a lack of motivation? Like, do you not want to get back to your characters? Do you not want to get back to your story? Or do you not know what is supposed to happen next? Do you not know where you are? Are you lost within your own plotting, within your story? Are you estranged from the characters? Have you lost touch with your own material? Do you think that the world is not dense enough yet? Like, you need to go back to the drawing board and develop more in terms of world building, or in terms of the characters. I think in fiction, what helps is getting back into the head of the characters. And an exercise that I like to do is also with other writers, to just have a conversation between two characters. It doesn't have to be material that necessarily ends up in the book or in the manuscript, but just start writing something, a dialogue, a clash, a letter between an exchange between two characters.
I did not.
Good.
I had that occasion on the first book. It sort of stopped me for about 6 weeks, but not this time.
Mhm.
I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was well organized going into it, and I've been a blogger for about a dozen years. And I actually stopped writing the blog so that it didn't interfere with this. But I had about 115,000 readers on the blog. And one of the things that and a lot of this, when you're blogging, you have to publish on a certain schedule because people expect to see your updates at a certain time and so on. And I devised a method wherein I basically would regurgitate what I was thinking onto a page, set it aside, and come back to it in order to start refining it. And I took that approach chapter by chapter, and that seemed to help me avoid the dreaded block, as you put it.
Oh my goodness, COVID was horrible.
Yeah.
COVID was absolutely the worst thing that had, and yes, I'm in lockdown, and yes, I'm sitting there in my little condo facing the ocean, and boy, I couldn't write a lick. I had finished the book that released yesterday, Boogie Beach, but I was working on the second, and my plan was to do this rapid release of the first 3 books the summer of COVID. And what I ended up doing was I couldn't write a lick, so I went back and dug out a old manuscript that was finished and did a massive rewrite on it because it was somewhat rudimentary. And that ended up being my literary fiction. And that's gotten a lot of nice reviews. And I think that's a really solid book. So I didn't stop writing, but I couldn't write anything fresh. So I just rewrote something and made it a lot better.